Everybody, just finished Ursula Le Guin's Always Coming Home. Now, this book came out in 1985, and this might even be from 1985. I mean, this totally fell apart on me when I was reading it. Bought it off of eBay for just a couple of bucks. But it's an anthology, and Ursula Le Guin is painting the picture about a society in the future, the Kesh people. And she does it in an imaginative way. She doesn't just tell a story from beginning to the end. She actually puts together pieces as if somebody was digging up scraps of information from various sources and trying to put together how the Kesh people lived. And by that, I mean, within the very first pages, we're reading about an archaeologist way in the future who is putting together her version of what she thinks the Kesh people were like through published records and also pieces of broken pottery, their town. She discovers a town, so she's trying to dig the town and try and figure out what the Kesh people are like. So, our lens as the reader is from somebody way in the future who's trying to figure out about a civilization that happened way in their past. So just for that alone, I give Ursula Le Guin, an A+ on, because, I just don't see that very often in literature. Of course, it's hard to pull off. It's hard to do that very well. So what do we get in this book? We get poetry. We get plays. You can actually read a few small plays short plays that are introduced in this book. You're reading about someone's life, Stonetelling's life. It's given to us in 3 sections. We learn about what the Kesh view of the history of their world is through a section called 4 Histories. There's another section called Romantic Tales, which talks about, I guess, the relationships between men and women within Kesh society. So marriage is explored a little bit. The definition of, how you look at yourself in context to that society. Are you a piece of that whole society, or are you just living amongst other people, just trying to get by? Society and technological advancement is an issue. Ursula Le Guin explores that. Do you have to have all the computers? Do you have to see all the latest TV shows? Do you have to take vacations to Florida to be happy? Things like that. That's addressed in this book. Or can you stay in one centralized location and live out your entire life and be satisfied with that? So how we live today in our society, in parallel compared to this mythical future, is worth thinking about. And I think that's what, again, Ursula Le Guin is trying to explore, the parallels and differences between society now as compared to in the future. What else do we look at? I had a couple of notes I had written down. I think another big issue that Le Guin was writing about is the balance with nature. The Kesh people seem to be very much in tune with the world around them. I mean, the actual environment, animals, other people, how they look at nature, their crops, how they give to one another, how they live and die together. Very interesting. There's a section about funerals and how the Kesh people look at death. So if you're willing to look at a book and read a book from that perspective, it's interesting, because you have to kind of put on your detective hat and piece together different snippets here and there to understand the world that the Kesh live in. Just for an example, scattered throughout this little anthology, you get the feeling that something terrible happened to Earth or it's going to happen terrible to our Earth in the future. Something catastrophic happens because there's a lot less people. Cities aren't nearly as big as what they are here in our timeline. Disease is much more prevalent. There's genetic mutations going on, which kind of alludes to possibly nuclear fallout, either from nuclear war or maybe a large earthquake that just totally ripped apart some nuclear power plants. Who knows? But there's definitely allusions to something that happened back in Cash Society's history, our future. So, as I said, difficult read. It's a complex book, very imaginative by the way Ursula put this together. I think this is an important book. I think it is worth reading if you can get through it. It will take you some work, but at the end of it, I think you will be surprised by how it turns out. And the story about stone telling in her life is interesting. It does hook you, and you want to stay with it. And that's why I finished the book, because I wanted to find out, what happened with stone telling and how things turned out for her life. Because, she grows up in this small valley. She moves away with her father to this culture that is very dysfunctional. And, how does she escape from that society? How does she decide to move, or why does she decide to move back to her little valley, where the people are taking things very slowly, day by day. But good book altogether.